As the 2018 Women's World Tour makes its transition from the one-day spring classics to stage racing, it's hard not to notice the overlap between Tour of California Women's Race, May 17–19, and Spain's Emakumeen Bira, May 19–22. The conflict has forced many women's teams to choose one over the other, something that the UCI told Cyclingnews it aims to fix in future. The organizers of the Amgen Tour of California Women's Race, empowered with SRAM, always link the women's race to the men's race, with both events running concurrently and concluding in Sacramento. The UCI explained to Cyclingnews, the UCI regrets the overlap with Spain's Emakumeen Bira race, and for future seasons, we aim to avoid calendar conflicts of events whenever possible. Last year, Tour of California Women's Race was held ahead of the men's event and shared the city of Sacramento for the women's finale and opening stage of the men's race. Also, there were 3 days between Tour of California Women's Race and Emakumeen Bira. Even though Emakumeen Bira has a 30-year history in women's racing, it was not on the Women's World Tour calendar. Emakumeen Bira was one of 3 races added to the Women's World Tour this year to make up the current 23-event series. The Tour of California Women's Race is held later in the week, and on the same days as the final 3 stages of the men's race, so there is 1 day of overlap between the 2 events. Anna van der Breggen, who won the Tour of California title last year and is currently the leader of the Women's World Tour, will not return stateside to defend her title. Her Boels-Dolmans team, which is the #1 ranked team in the world, told Cyclingnews earlier this month that they don't have the riders or the resources to compete in both races, and chose to race Emakumeen Bira. American outfit Cylance told Cyclingnews that they were in the same position as Boels-Dolmans, and with their sponsors looking for exposure overseas, they too chose to race in Spain. Both teams hope to return to the Tour of California in future editions. Organizers of events that are part of the Women's World Tour are obliged to invite the top 15 ranked UCI women's teams and must accept entries from these teams that have responded positively to an invitation. After that, they can extend invitations to 2 national teams, one from the country hosting the event and 1 invitation to a foreign national team, and the remaining teams must be UCI women's teams. Tour of California organizers announced the 15 teams that will be competing in the 3-day race, which does include 4 of the top 15 teams in the world ranking: Sunweb, Canyon SRAM, Wiggle High 5 and Astana Women. Kristen Klein, president of the Amgen Tour of California, says she is pleased with the final team selection and says that the overlap with Emakumeen Bira is a sign of growth in the development of women's cycling. "We are fortunate to have 8 of the top 20 World Tour teams competing in this year's race, as we did last year, and are thrilled to have some of the best riders in the world committed to the 2018 Amgen Tour of California Women's Race empowered with SRAM," Klein told Cyclingnews. "We recognize the overlap with the Emakumeen Bira this year. From a macro level, it is great for the sport of women's cycling that there are growing choices for teams. Conflicting races on the Women's World Tour puts some stress on elite women's teams, but Klein believes that offering more opportunities, and more races, will help build the sport's overall resources. More opportunity for the sport of women's cycling and these amazing athletes is a good thing," Klein said. "If anything, it gives growing teams and riders a chance to develop so that we have even deeper resources in the sport for future. We will continue to have an open dialogue with the sport's governing bodies to ensure we're working together for the growth of the sport and maximize opportunities for all, including those teams on the cusp of breaking into the top 15, along with Sunweb, Canyon SRAM, Wiggle High 5 and Astana Women." The Tour of California has confirmed American teams Higgins, Berman Superman, Rally Cycling, Team Illuminate, Tibco SVB, 2020 Pro Cycling, United Healthcare and the USA Cycling Team, which will be led by former winner Megan Garnier. Other teams include Bepink, Italy, Mexican National Team, Swap It, Agalico, Mexico, and Trek Drops, Great Britain. The Amgen Tour of California has always been committed to growing the sport of women's cycling, as evidenced by our women's race going from a 1-day race to a World Tour event over the past decade. Klein said, "We are all passionate about continuing to propel the sport, and we look forward to continuing to work with sponsors, teams and cities across the state of California to provide opportunity and resources to ensure the sport continues to evolve and thrive. It's always been important for us to support our US-based teams and not only grow the sport in the US but worldwide."